This is NFA Talk, the show that talks about guns and gun rights, keeping you up to date with what's currently going on, from the newest guns, promotions, and events, plus how we're lobbying for your rights.
All right, it's time for another episode of NFA Talk. And for those that you that don't know, as of August 19th, the Liberals took another kick at the firearms community. They've now made it so you cannot import your handguns or any new handguns into Canada for that fact. So joining me tonight, I have our president, Rick Iggersich, our vice president, Blair Hagan, and from Quebec, I have Chuck Cote. Guys, how you doing?
Good, Jordan. How are you tonight?
Absolutely great. So, I mean, you know, the Liberals have taken another kick at us. They've, with Parliament not being in session, they went ahead and they found a loophole, and they've now blocked off all the importations of new handguns into Canada as of the 19th. It's absolutely terrible. There are some exceptions. Chuck, you've already gone through this. Maybe you can run everybody through that. But, if you're traveling if you're Canadian and you're traveling out of country or you go to the U.S. to shoot competitions, from what I hear, Chuck, there's a lot more paperwork involved, right?
Yep, definitely, Jordan. It used to be just when you come back to Canada, you used to show your handgun certificate, and each certificate has like the serial number of your handgun. So like, let's say you bring 5 handguns. You showed the CBSA agent your paperwork. He sometimes verify the serial number if it matched your certificates. But now it's a totally different process. You got to go through Global Affair Canada. You got to file some paperwork for each of your handguns. You got to ask an import permit for each time you cross. And there's a fee for this now. So basically, it's going to cost a lot more. Let's say for someone who's been shooting, who lives near the border, who has his club in the U.S. The bill is a lot more expensive. Yeah. I went through that process this week. Basically, I have the information here. It's by the value of your handguns. Let's say if you bring one handgun that's value less than $1,000, it's going to cost you $15 for each crossing, and the import permit is valid for 29 days. If it's between $1,000 and $5,000, it's going to be $19. More than $5,000 to $10,000, it's $23. $10,000 and more, $27, and $20,000 and more is $31,000. We all know that guys who compete, let's say in IPSC, sometimes they have like a backup gun and a backup of a backup gun. So it can easily go up fast.
Yeah. Just to clarify that, Chuck, that permit's only good for 29 days, but it's only good for one crossing. Once you do the one crossing, that permit's done. You have to reapply.
Yeah, that was my surprise, because I thought I would have to do the import permit every 4 weeks, let's say, and then no, I learned this week that it's only good for one crossing. So I was thinking about going to the range tomorrow, and I have a match Saturday, so I would have to have done 2 import permit. And I mean, it's very complicated to do it. There's a lot of paperwork. I mean, it's not easy, and it's not made for individuals. You see that on the files, they ask you for your business name, but we're not a business, so yeah, it's definitely not paid for individuals.
This is actually it's quite disturbing, because this is your own property. It's already been imported once into Canada. Taxes have been paid, and now every time you take it out and you bring it back, you're now getting taxed, and it makes you wonder. This opens up a whole new can of worms. When you cross with your car, you don't need an export permit and an import permit with your vehicle or any other of your possessions that you take across. So all of a sudden now you need an import and export permit for your handgun. What road are we going down here? What do you guys think?
It makes absolutely no sense. We're paying, we bought the firearm in Canada. We paid the taxes on it. Back in the day, it was the old green slip when you wanted to bring your stuff that you exported back into Canada, you showed them your greens slip. Everything was listed on your green slip. Now it's a big money grab, and Global Affairs Canada is doing it. It's not the RCMP, it's not CFO, it's not anybody else. It's Global Affairs Canada is in charge of this. It doesn't make any sense to me. You're muted there, Blair. Blair, you're muted.
Yeah, maybe it's a good thing, because I'm sitting here chuckling to myself. And once again, you guys are all out of line on this. You know what your problem is? You're trying to look at this logically. Okay, stop it. Cut it out. All right. Don't try to apply logic to any of this. Okay.
Point well taken. And when the Liberals are involved, there is no logic.
No, there really isn't. I mean, have they come out and claimed that this will not have any effect on legitimate gun owners yet? I mean, come on. I mean, we're far enough through this issue, far enough through the legislative history of this government to know that none of this is based on public safety. No, this is a very, very personal war on the Canadian right and cultural tradition of firearms ownership use in Canada and the Liberal Party of Canada. I mean, this is more proof of their goal of civil disarmament, because none of this has anything to do with public safety. There's no logical explanation for it, but yet they put it in place in order to target people like Chuck.
And you know, and Blair, you know what's funny too is they're spending so much time and so much resources making sure that Chuck, who is a responsible, law-abiding citizen of Canada, that he's got all his paperwork done, that the criminals are just walking across the border with their stuff, the smugglers.
If Chuck finds it too difficult or too confusing or complicated, maybe he may just want to think about getting another hobby. Why not take up stamp collecting? Okay, you don't have to put up with this sort of thing.
Golf.
That's what it's all about.
Or golf. I mean, in my opinion, waste of good long ranges, but it could be your next choice. And this, you're right, Blair. This does not affect crime and crime guns in any way. Gun smugglers aren't gonna get a permit to smuggle their guns over the border. So I don't know how this is gonna stop crime in Canada.
It's not. I mean, it's a deliberate method of harassing Canadian firearms owners engaged in legitimate activities cross-border in the United States. It's an ideological thing. This is ideology at play. Okay, it's not public safety. This was not demanded by the RCMP, CBSA, anybody else. Okay, not even demanded by the Firearms Program. This is coming from the Liberal Party intelligentsia. Okay, that is the bottom line here. Okay, and there's just no other way to put it now. We're trying to figure out what is the purpose behind this. We know what the purpose behind this is. Come on.
Yeah. You know what though, Blair, you're right, but it's just it's a prelude to what's going to happen with the handgun freeze. This is the start of it. It started already. It started without a bill. They've enacted part of their legislation without it even having a third reading. It's no royal assent, no anything. They enacted part of the bill.
They found a loophole. It's disturbing.
Yeah,
it's
very disturbing
that they found this loophole, right?
Yeah.
May I add that we've had a good example this week that gun smuggling, like how gun smuggling goes, and the penalties that are a real joke. Like we've seen that guy who smuggled like 6 hockey bags. With 250 frames, polymer 80 frames into Canada. He did 1 year in prison, and he's going to do like the rest of 4 other years at his home. I mean, it's a joke. Basically, like you would be better like to just not file for anything and like bring your gun back and hey.
Yeah, chances are you're probably going to get more jail time if your PAL expires than that guy did smuggling all them firearms over. That's the irony of this whole thing. They'll prosecute us to the end, but smugglers, thieves, gangbangers, they don't care about them. They're out in the street in a year or less.
Well, and Rick, don't get me wrong. Like they know us at the border. We've been crossing there like for the past like 7-10 years. They know everyone. We've got Nexus card. We've been investigated by the FBI on both. Like everyone has investigated us. Like if they want to check us, they can always ask for a more thorough investigation, check like our text message or anything like that. So I mean, we're always checked. So
Yeah. You,
Um,
you've got just to show an example, Chuck. You've got your documents that you carry with you every time you cross the border. Can you just show us what you carry when you cross the border?
it's funny because my friends in New Hampshire, like when they see that, like they don't believe it. Like this is not all of it, but like I would say,
You mean there's more?
no, I mean the binder has Target and other stuff, but like I would say like this part here, like all this is all paperwork. Like I need to go back and forth.
well,
But
your papers look like they're quite in order.
Yeah.
they are. I mean,
Could
like
you could you
gotta,
just could you just give us a quick explanation on what you all take when you go across the border? What paperwork is involved,
yeah.
and now what
All right.
paperwork is involved to get back? Of course.
So when you arrive to the U.S. border to bring your personal firearms into the U.S., you need a Form 6 NIA from the ATF. So you list all your information is listed on there. All your firearms, the ammunition you bring, the amount of ammunition, all your firearms are listed with like the barrel length. Everything is put on there. You file for this, you send the form to the ATF. They will check all the information and come back with you with a stamp, and that means like the form is good and it's valid for a year. With that, I've got a couple ATF laws written, and so like if I get asked some questions, sometimes like even like a CVP agent, they don't know all the laws by heart. So like sometimes it's good like to have like some form of paperwork just to make sure that like we understand each other. I also have all my certificate for my farms, so to when I come back to Canada, that used to be like the norm. And most of the time, the CBSA agent, I'll be fully honest, they know you. I always bring the same firearm, so like after one or two, three crossing, like they check your serial number. They'll do some spot checks, like once in a while, but like I mean, they they know you. They know you. So I also have legal insurance in case something happened on both sides of the border. I mean, if you get charged with any farm related charges, it's always good to have like a legal insurance, which like was with Farm Legal Defense that we advertise at the NFA. I've got my confirmation of NFA insurance too. That costs us like $10 a year, which is valid like for anywhere in the world when you're doing farm related activities. So yeah, I'm sure Oh, of course, you gotta have your PAL, you gotta have your Nexus Pass, your passport. What else? Yeah, that's mostly it. Make sure you don't forget anything. Make sure your firearms are locked. That you have trigger locks. They are in good case that are locked in the back of your truck, and that your ammunition is separate from them. What else? Yeah, I mean, like there's always a surprise, but honestly, like
It
Well,
sounds so
I think
simple.
no. Well, I think we can all agree this is beyond ludicrous.
yeah,
I explain this stuff to people. Who ask what is necessary to do this? What is the law regarding this? And when I explain it to them, they can't believe it. Okay, no. It's the truth. This is what's required. This is the paperwork. That's what's no. You must be mistaken. It can't be that way. No. I deal with this every day. This is my job. No. I don't think you're right. I'm going to look into this. And of course, they never do, and see what the truth is. So nobody can believe it. But you talk about cross-boarding with firearms, and before this latest liberal incursion into trying to stop the possession and use of firearms in Canada, I can speak to that. All of this documentation and paperwork that is necessary. I had a case somewhat recently where a legitimate target shooter went to cross the border to shoot at his club in the USA. Uh, did so, crossed into the USA, participated in the target competition, came back to Canada, went through the border, and they asked to see his paperwork. Okay, and he thought he had all of his paperwork. He had his firearms license, he had the registrations for the firearm, his ATF Form 6, everything was good to go. And then they asked him for his ATT.
Yeah.
And he went through his binder and went through his paperwork and realized that, oh my God, I've forgotten it.
Uh-oh.
Oh my God, what am I going to do now? RCMP came over, seized his firearms, and charged him. Yeah. Okay.
Even though it's just to interject, Blair, even though it's attached to your PAL, when you get your PAL, your ATT, you still have to carry that little piece of paper that comes stuck underneath your PAL with all the conditions of carry on it, which is nothing short of ridiculous. That PAL card, the useless license that it is, should have that information on there. And
right.
There's a magnetic strip on that, which apparently was never used for anything. I heard the new PALs are coming with no magnetic strip on them. That's what I've been hearing lately. So,
yes, indeed. But I mean, it just goes to show the punitive nature of this system. All of this paperwork, all of this regulation is completely unnecessary. We know that now, and yet here's more of it. We all know why. I mean, we're sitting here just sitting back going, this is preposterous. There's no other way to put it. This does nothing. We know why they're doing it, and you know what? In the future, when there is a new government, this has got to change. And this is certainly on the agenda of Canada's National Firearms Association to address this type of stupid over-regulation that cannot be justified.
Yeah, I just want to I just want to backtrack 1 second. So there was recent changes to the Firearms Act, and we don't have an automatic ATT to the border and back. So that has to, you have to apply for that one. You have to get in contact with your CFO. So that you have to have a separate piece of paper for. Right now, all we have automatic TTs for is to the range and back, and from the point of purchase to back home.
Yeah, and that was since July last year.
That was Bill C-71. Yeah.
That's right. And I think most serious firearms owners, target shooters who do cross border into the USA know that. But the fact of the matter is, I mean, a lot of these regulations, once again, are so convoluted and poorly communicated that, people with no criminal intent run afoul of the law. And it's criminal law, and they are criminalized. And that's wrong. I mean, it's wrong. And there's been so many wrongs committed by this Liberal government that where do you start, where do you end in trying to point it out? I mean, we've been at this for years doing it. And, we've had successes in legislative and regulatory reform, to be sure. But I think what we're talking about is once a new government is elected, we need fundamental firearms law reform that addresses every part of this. Okay. Yeah. Every edifice of the Liberal Firearms Act has to be replaced, because if you leave it in place and you make it, we'll make it a little bit fairer, and we'll, do a few nips and tucks here, and, that's reasonable. No, because eventually they're going to get reelected and they're going to come back at us. And I think governments have to learn that. I think certainly this is a dialogue that we're having with the Conservative Party right now. A lot of Conservative Party members are familiar with these issues. But when we get into a period of legislative reform, we all have to be on them, not just us here in NFA. Our members got to be on their members of parliament, got to be on the government saying, no, that's not enough. We need major reforms.
Yeah. Well, look at the big picture of just this one thing here. There is no more handguns being imported into Canada. What about the up and coming shooters? When they put the freeze, when they freeze movement of all handguns in Canada, the ramifications of this are just unbelievable.
Rick,
and it's going to get worse.
Rick, you already know the answer to that. You know exactly what is being done here. Look, this is an economic and culture war that is being waged on Canadians by the Liberals and their fellow travelers internationally. The next federal government must approach this issue on the same terms, okay? Constitutional and legislative protections for the Canadian right and cultural tradition of firearms ownership, and the protection of business and industries engaged in supporting that. Okay, this is the minimum of what must take place. With the limited but important legislative reforms we achieved under the Harper government, history has shown that band-aids and half measures aren't going to stop the liberal civil disarmament agenda, okay? Strong legislation is needed on several fronts to protect the rights and freedoms and property of Canadians.
Yeah.
We know what the liberal agenda is. It is to destroy our culture, okay? They tried it with long gun registration and every other part of Bill C-68, and they wound up with egg on their face. They created a gun lobby in Canada. I don't think any of us would be sitting here today if it wasn't for Bill C-68 back in the 90s. And they really feel that they have an opportunity now to do us enough damage that, hey, we can politically marginalized firearms owners in Canada, the firearms issue in Canada. It will not be a political issue the way it is today. They want to reduce our numbers. They want to make it like it is in places like England and Australia, where the numbers of firearms owners were reduced to such a point that their political importance became negligible. And they're still suffering under very, very punitive firearms legislation. And the fewer there are of you, the less of an effect you're going to have on maintaining your sport and fighting for legislative reforms, in your various parliaments. Okay, and that is the concerted effort of what the Liberal Party is doing here today. Okay, they've failed very badly in the past. They did not learn from those failures, and it's going to be our job to once again show them the error of their ways. You do not attack the rights and freedoms of Canadians. You do not attack the firearms rights of Canadians. If you do, your government is defeated and you're relegated to the garbage bin of history. And we're going to do it again.
Yeah, this goes way beyond firearms. That was my point. This goes way beyond firearms. If they can do this with overnight ban an import of a product into Canada, what's next? What are they gonna ban next? Ford trucks, because they're Ford trucks. Their powers are the powers that they are using aren't there, but they're finding a way to make this stuff happen, and that's where we have to spread the word out. This is beyond firearms.
Yeah. Rick, they brought in the Emergencies Act to shut down a protest in Ottawa. The War Measures Act.
Yeah, it's been enacted 4 times since its implementation. It was World War I, World War II. Pierre Elliott Trudeau during the Quebec FLQ crisis, and Junior just lately.
And that's going really south on them right now. I mean, they've already, all the police said they didn't ask for it. Nobody asked for it. Marco said, they asked for it. Who's telling the truth here? And just look at the Mass Casualty Commission, right? There's a lot of stuff going on there too. There's a track record here of the Liberals.
World War I, World War II, you could make a justification for it. The FLQ crisis, well, I mean, bombs were going off, people were being injured and dying, and you could, I wouldn't have agreed with that decision, but you could make a case for imposing it at that time. I mean, the safety of Canadians from terrorist attacks. I don't know if I would agree with that. If I was around in 1970 and a voter, I don't think I would have agreed with it, but I would have understood why that was imposed. But today,
God forbid if you drove a Kenworth into Ottawa in the winter.
Yeah, God forbid. Yeah. And boy, if your kids were in the bouncy castle, holy cow! I mean, send in the troops, right?
Yeah.
I mean, and that is the legacy of this government, and we're still living it right now, okay? But I mean, this government is going to fall, and we are going to move into the future, and it's going to be our job to make sure people remember this in detail and living color.
They're setting up bouncy castles and hot tubs. Emergency Act.
The problem we have with this, with everything here, is people have really short memories. People are forgetting what happened in Ottawa with the Emergency Measures Act. People forget, and we're here to remind people that, look what they did. Look, they did the OIC. They did Bill C-71. They're working on 21. They've already stopped import of handguns into Canada. We need to keep this fresh and on top and let everybody know and tell people what we're doing and how we're fighting this stuff.
Rick, this affects so many people on so many levels that I think we're not going to have a real problem with that. Okay, we will continue to lead. We will continue to go to Ottawa to make sure that these 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 offenses against citizenship are corrected. Okay, but I think, given the level of the attack on so many Canadians here, that this will not go unpunished by Canadian voters.
Well, I hope you're right, Blair. But you know what? The elections bring funny things about. Look at the last one. It was. I thought it was going to be a conservative shoe-in, and you know what? It went sideways on us. Well, that was.
Didn't we have a discussion on this already? I think everybody in the farms community understands what happened
Yep.
in that election, and
Yeah.
I think the Conservative Party of Canada does as well.
Yeah. It just you know what? The election surprised you. That's what that's my point. We just gotta. We gotta keep. We got to keep informing people right to the bitter end.
Well, the good thing about that is we are on our game. Canada's National Farms Association, we are definitely on our game. We are driving this issue. Our members are invigorated. Our members are informed. They want, holy cow, I mean, they want to go to the polls. They want to fight for their freedoms. And they did so in the last election too. And it's too bad that the Conservative leader let them down. Okay.
Yes, he did.
Yeah. And will the next Conservative leader? We'll see.
Time will tell. Hopefully sooner than later. So on another note, last night we kind of got wind that Marco was making a big announcement this morning, and Miramichi, and every firearms owner goes, great, what next, right? Like we've already had a whole slew of things. They just froze the handgun importation. Where the C21's coming up. What are they going to do next? And it turns out that he gets in front. He says, hey, they're gonna give a whole bunch of money away, and they're going to give some money at New Brunswick there of $1 million. So, okay, that's great, right? $1 million. And he even said, to fight the root cause, his words, to fight the root cause, they're going to give them $1 million, but yet they're going to spend billions of dollars taking firearms away from law-abiding responsible owners. And he's perfect, straight-faced in front of the camera, addresses the nation that this is what they're going to do. I was shocked. Like how can you stand there and say that?
Yeah.
Like we're going after the root cause. Here's $1 million. By the way, taxpayers, it's going to cost you $5-10 billion to get firearms away from the people that are not going to cause the problem.
Justin Trudeau's plane burnt more than $1 million. I would venture a guess that Justin Trudeau's plane burnt more than $1 million worth of fuel while he was flying all his friends and relatives around the world on vacation. So what's $1 million in the grand scheme of things to fight?
The only
fight our biggest problem in Canada. This smuggling and these gangs.
The only people this is impressing at this point are deep red liberals. Okay. People who would, sit there and clap anyway.
I think he's losing their support. I think he's losing their support. How could you, even a true deep liberal, how could you sit there and go, I agree with him when it's blatantly obvious? I don't know.
I'm talking about deep red liberals, okay? People who identify as liberal and have voted for that party in the past, I think you're right. I know for a fact, because I talked to them, that, hey, we know this stuff doesn't do anything. We know it's stupid. And, guess what? At the end of the day, I probably don't support it. And a lot of them, I think, are looking for an alternative and looking for change as well. I mean, this government has been in power for 7 years and has actually hurt the lives of Canadians. The liberals are feeling it. Canadians are feeling it. I think we're due for a change, and I think we're going to get it.
Yeah, and that's my next point too. How this is going to impact the economy. When handguns cease to move in Canada, there's going to be millions, if not billions, of dollars of revenue for accessories, the guns themselves, accessories, ammunition, targets. What our range is going to do, when the generations get old and these guns are supposed to go back to the state, I guess that's the only place they can go because they can't move.
And that's completely unacceptable. This is a property rights issue. But come on, Rick, you know the answer to this question, okay? This is the liberal agenda. This is how we start phasing it out, okay? We impose these laws. we will be in government forever because we are the Liberal Party, Canada's national party. So we keep these laws in place and we continue the agenda as we can through the years. And this is why legislative change, fundamental firearms law reform legislation, is absolutely necessary here, because if you don't approach it on that basis, these laws stay in place in some form or another, and they can be brought back under a future Liberal government. Okay, but that is the agenda here. You ask, what about the effects on Canadian businesses? They don't care. What about the effects on the rights and property of Canadians? They don't care. Okay, so that is the answer. They don't care. This is part of their agenda. And if you're hurt by it, sorry, but it's for your own good.
Wow. They're attacking the livelihood of many Canadians. It's a full industry that's being attacked. Like, I mean, it doesn't make any sense.
No. Well, and just if you look at the numbers of the just handguns that come into Canada, and we'll probably be doing something about this down the road a ways, but the revenue, like you said, but Blair, the other thing is the tax money they're going to lose on this whole deal. Every time something moves, there's taxes in every province. In Ontario, it's 13%. It's a harmonized sales tax.
Well,
they don't seem to look at the big picture because they've got their blinders on. And I know what you're saying. I know what you're saying. They have an agenda, but they don't look at the other end of the agenda. What's going to happen when this happens?
There you go again, Rick. The loss of tax dollars. Print more money.
I was just going to say that. Just print more, right?
Yeah. Then the little word called inflation comes into play there, Blair.
What is that? Why do we use that word, Rick?
Well, it's now justflation. Just
inflation. Yeah.
Just inflation. Yeah.
Rick, I don't think about things like that. I think about Canadian families.
Yeah.
I mean, this is the ludicrous state of our political scene in Ottawa right now, where, my God, where a Canadian political figure can stand up in Parliament and just use these type of idiotic platitudes and say absolutely baseless statements based on feel-good bromides and think he can get away with it. And you know what? He can't. You can't get away with it forever.
No, somebody's going to have to pay the piper at the end of the day, and tax loss, and driving the economy down, and causing an inflation. Everybody's going to feel that, but unfortunately, like you said, the diehard bleed red liberals, till they realize that, wow, I can't go and buy that extra loaf of bread today. Then they're going to realize, well, maybe we should reevaluate and voted a different way when this was all happening in the first place.
Well, the good
it's starting
news
now. It's starting now.
The good news is it's starting now, and it's happened in the past. Okay,
yeah.
This is not the first time that Canada has been in this sort of situation or this kind of shape. Hey, we've defeated Liberal governments in the past. We defeated a Liberal government in 2006. Everybody thought that they would be reelected because, well, they're the Liberal Party, right? And of course, Stephen Harper will never be Prime Minister of Canada. No, we showed them. We showed them that they made very bad mistakes, not only on things like economic policy and social and cultural policy, which affect all Canadians, I mean, even us, but also on firearms policy. They persevered with a firearms agenda that hurt Canadians, that attacked the wrong people, and they thought that, after 13 years of majority governments, that was it. That's the law of Canada and would never change. We defeated their government. We made firearms law reforms under a new government, and we're going to do it again.
Yeah. Well, their marriage made in heaven with the NDP is the only thing that's keeping them afloat right now. There's been rumblings that we've been hearing that marriage is a little bit on the rocks right now. So hopefully sooner than later we can get an election or they call an election and we get this stuff sorted out. But like I say, Blair, you keep bringing that up the past, but people have a tendency to forget what happened in the past.
That's why we're here.
Exactly. My point.
No, exactly, and we've lived that. We've the wealth of our experience, our involvement in this issue over the years. I know there's a lot of frustrated people out there right now who are very, very worried about, their property, the future of their property, their sport, their cultural heritage, because this is a cultural heritage and it's a legitimate one in Canada. And it's one that we need to protect and celebrate. I've been harping on that for years. Okay. But the fact of the matter is that we have political and legal solutions to this. Political and legal solutions that exist now that didn't even exist in the past. Okay. So if you're feeling depressed or frustrated, or if you're a little, or if you're worried, and you're perfectly justified in being so, look, it's not a one-way street. Okay, governments have a finite life. Every government falls. Okay, this prime minister has completely failed Canadians. It's widely recognized, and we do have an alternative in Ottawa, and those things are so important.
Even with that said, Blair, you got to remember though, even if the party does change, it's our job to convince the new leaders or help them in a direction that they need to go. It just. And there's another problem. We could end up with a leader, and I'm not saying who's going to win the CPC leadership, but we could end up with a leader that's on the same page as the Liberals, and then where do we sit? So there's another thing we need to look at present time. Put the right guy in there, at least somebody we can talk to.
Yes.
They're not gonna. The guy's just not gonna jump in there and get rid of the Firearms Act. He's not drop the. You know what? We need to apply a little bit of pressure, and we need to talk to these people once they get
exactly. But Rick, that's what we've been doing for the last 6-8 months over a year.
We have. Yes, we have.
I know you've been meeting with the Conservative Party candidates. I've been meeting with the Conservative Party candidates, taking our message to them directly.
Me too.
And Jordan, who is so important with NFA Talk here. Okay. Yeah. And they have heard us. Okay. And that is why they have all come out with firearms policies that some better than others, some a little more nuanced than others. But they have all addressed their firearms policies based on the issues that we have, the issues that face Canadians today. And that's a very important thing to recognize. When Jean Charest starts talking about, comes out at the start of the campaign and says, well, I'm not going to change anything, flip-flops and says, no, I'm a friend of firearms owners. You're on the right track. And it's through our hard work, the hard work of our members, the hard work of the broader firearms community, that is a political game that we can celebrate.
Yeah, Jean Charest also said
that was kind of like deja vu there, except the other way around.
He's not. He's not.
Yeah, Jean Charest also said that he's a diehard conservative, but meanwhile he was the Liberal premier of Quebec. So I don't know how you correlate those two.
The problem with Jean Charest is, and we very much wanted to give him a platform to explain his thoughts on firearms policy, express his firearms policies to our membership and members of the firearms community in that NFA talk. Okay, we were not going to shy away from the tough questions, and we did not. We made him face those questions, and he had an opportunity to address them. Okay, it was up to him to convince people that he maybe had a mea culpa, or had changed his views on firearms ownership, or maybe had a better understanding of the issue at this juncture here. Did he do that? I don't know.
You know what? The voting's coming to an end here, if it hasn't come to an end, and I just hope that people chose wisely, because this is a critical juncture in Canadian politics.
Very much is. But we're doing our part. We're highly organized. We're highly motivated. We are, at the functions, at the rallies. We are, in the halls of power, talking to people, getting the message through that, hey, these are very, very serious issues that not only affect firearms owners, but affect all Canadians. Okay.
Yeah, right.
So, this is the canary, the canary in the coal mine here. You talk about freedom. You talk about protecting the rights and freedoms of Canadians. Well, take a look at what's happening here. Can you justify that? Can you let this stand? And I think, to their credit, most of them have very much decided emphatically that it cannot.
Right, and I'm gonna jump in and say, like, I've been going to a lot of these meet and greets as well, and you get talking with people in the crowd, and it's not just us that are really pushing hard. Like, you start talking with the people. I've met a lot of firearms owners there, and they're like, we're here for that exact same reason. So like we are taking the charge here. We are doing what we do, but I'm seeing a lot of firearms owners just going out there and voicing their opinion for themselves as well, which is it's great to see because everybody needs to get on board with this.
We know this is a bedrock issue in the Conservative Party of Canada. Some of them don't like it. Some of them don't like the way the firearms issue has sort of manifested itself in Canada over the last 10, 15, 20 years, 25 years. But it's one that they're faced with now. And they know that we're a really big factor. That's we are a constituency that they cannot afford to tick off. The more enlightened ones understand this issue the same way we do. I talk to members of the Conservative Party, MPs, people in the back rooms, and say, hey, this affects me too. I'm a firearms owner. Okay. So we understand. But the other ones, the ones who are maybe a little less enlightened on it, know that, oh my God, we've got these firearms owners that they're not going away. We know there's problems with firearms laws. And if we form government or hold power, that they're going to be coming at us and they're going to want results, and we're going to have to deal with that. So it's not an all or nothing issue. Okay, regardless of what this party looks like now, what it looks like in the future, we're prepared for any eventuality, and this is a permanent part of the Canadian political landscape from now on.
We need a full review of the Firearms Act.
Absolutely.
Yeah, nothing less.
No. I mean, it's not just a review. I mean, it's fundamental firearms law reform. The next Firearms Act.
Full review.
The next Firearms Act can in no way resemble the Firearms Act that we have now.
Yeah, and the Firearms Act shouldn't be drafted by lawyers and politicians. It should be drafted with gun people and people that are involved in firearms. That's where it should be drafted. And I use the term loosely, RCMP, but it just they're gonna have some kind of involvement in there. But you know what? It needs to. It lacks common sense, is what it lacks.
I think that's widely recognized now, and inevitably it's going to be drafted by lawyers, but it has to be the right lawyers, okay? And they have to have the right instruction from government and the right guidelines from government, okay? And it has to come from an understanding that the laws have failed. The laws do not target the right people. Legitimate firearms owners are not a danger to public safety, and it's time for a new day. It's time for a new road.
Don't get me wrong. We all have families. We all we want our people safe. We want our people safe, but at the same time, we want to be able to practice our sport and our passion. That's it.
Yeah. No, I mean,
absolutely.
And and a few of the key leaders, when they do talk about rewriting the Firearms Act, a couple of them did say that they would take advice from firearms people, organizations like ours, etc., to streamline the process and hopefully, like you said, the lawyers that are writing it, I'm hoping that some of those lawyers are gunslingers so they can actually, and
I just hope they have common sense.
Yeah. Wow.
There are lawyers who have common sense out there. We know them.
Yes, there is, and those are the guys that work with us, is the guys with a lot of common sense.
We want laws that makes a difference on security, real difference on security, that will prevent smugglers. We're all against smuggled firearms, all of us.
You know what? I've been faced with these questions recently too. I think CBSA and RCMP and other law enforcement agencies, they're all doing the most they can with what they have right now. Okay, I don't think this is a case of a failure at the border. I don't think it's a case of Canadian law enforcement. I don't think we have a problem there. We all know where the problem lies. It lies in the legislatures, in Ottawa, and in the courts. My God, I mean, Justin Trudeau just reduced mandatory minimum sentences, got rid of mandatory minimum sentences for gun crimes.
Yeah.
How does that make sense? Well, we're stopping smuggling of guns at the border by reducing sentences for gun crimes. You can't even take that seriously.
Yeah.
So
You know,
I mean,
Exactly.
it's not a case of not enough controls at borders or not enough investigatory powers at borders, or there will always be a case to be made that there's not enough manpower to do this, and I understand that. But the fact is, it's not a failure at the border; it's a failure in Ottawa.
Yeah, and the biggest problem is there's no defined line between politics and the law. It seems like the politics is coming more and more into play and drifting into the law, like the hard set laws, and
Yes.
that shouldn't be happening. You know, the prime example of what's happening with the Mass Casualty Commission with the tragedy that happened in Nova Scotia. You know, the interference by police or interference by politicians into the police. That should never happen, and that's a big thing right now. There's no line anymore. There's no line back. When you and I were young, Blair, and we were shooting 22s out in the backyard, there was a definite line between the law enforcement and politics, but there's no line right now. One is just infusing the other one.
No, you're absolutely right. I mean, the RCMP has been politicized. The federal bureaucracy has been politicized. Every level of that, which once existed to serve Canadians, now exists to serve the federal government, exists to serve Justin Trudeau.
Yeah, you know what? And it all goes downhill, and it all ends up on Justin Trudeau. He's the root of the whole issue here.
I mean, I've seen Liberal prime ministers in the past that were, certainly controversial and questionable, and did some not very nice things, but this one is just so far beyond the pale, and I think so many Canadians recognize that now. That's this is a teachable moment. Okay.
Well, hey, we put a drama teacher in charge of our country.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, not us, but Liberal voters.
Yeah. Well,
don't get me going, Blair. I'm going to start swearing here again, and I can't. Jordan says I can't do this on him.
No, we want to keep
the. I'm just trying to settle myself here after listening to that name there a few times. But anyway.
Yeah.
I regress.
Anyways, well, I think we've completely. I think we've solved we've solved Canada's problems here.
Yeah. We covered a lot tonight. It's been 47 minutes. So I don't know. Chuck, final thought. Rick, final thought, and I say we call it a night.
Yeah. The only thought I would have, get out there, let your voices be known, help us out. Talk to your politicians, talk to your MPs. Hopefully there's an election coming. If there is, get out there, and we need to change this government ASAP. Yeah.
Right. So just a little side note, TACCOM is coming up. Check us out at TACCOM, September 9th, 10th, and 11th. We also have a promotion going on right now. If you go to our website, NFA.ca, we have the Wolverine campaign going on. I don't have it in front of me, the rules, but it's purchase anything in our store, and you're going to get an entry to win the Handguns Wolverine, nice little foldable pump action shotgun. Really nice. Check that out at NFA.ca.
Yeah,
and I think,
and a little spoiler for TACCOM, the NFA is possibly going to be giving away a couple guns, so the odds of winning them are going to be really good. So everybody show up, and you'll have a chance to win a couple of, from what I hear, pretty cool guns.
Absolutely. All right, guys. So I think we'll call it at there. Chuck, thank you for joining us. It's been a long time since you've been on NFA Talk. We've had you on the French version in the past, and great for you joining us tonight. Rick, Blair, it's always fun talking with you guys, and I guess we'll see everybody soon. Good night.
Thanks, Jordan.
Good night,
everybody.
Take care, guys.
Thanks for listening to this episode of NFA Talk. Like and follow the NFA on social media and sign up to become a member.